പ്രേക്ഷകർ ഇരുകൈയും നീട്ടി സ്വീകരിച്ച ലേഡീസ് അവറിന്റെ ഒരു പുതിയ എപ്പിസോഡിലേക്ക് എല്ലാ മാന്യ പ്രേക്ഷകർക്കും സ്വാഗതം. സ്വന്തം പ്രയത്നത്താൽ വിവിധ മേഖലകളിൽ ജീവിത വിജയം നേടിയ സ്ത്രീ വ്യക്തിത്വങ്ങളെ പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തുന്നു സ്മാർട്ട് ലേഡി.
Namaskaram. എൻ്റെ പേര് Kalamandalam Barbara Vijaykumar. I am a Kathakali makeup specialist, chutti specialist, and I'm also a painter. As a child, I had a very bad education. The only thing I could do was draw. So I went to art school in England and felt that my paintings were alive. So to bring them alive, I put colours and shapes onto people, not as costumes, but as sculpture. The only problem was the makeup that I did was terrible. So I was on my way overland to Australia to find the Aborigines to ask if I could study their makeup. I set off with one bag on my own and travelled all across Europe, then Turkey, then Iran, into Afghanistan. I travelled on a bicycle, a donkey and the top of a lorry, then through the Khyber Pass into Pakistan and finally into India. And the minute I crossed Wagah border into North India, I felt that I'd come home. Then I travelled around India, but in South India, in Kerala, I made an accident, a mistake that changed my life. I got off a train at the wrong stop by accident. Accidentally found the Kerala Kalamandalam, and I began to train as the very first female Kathakali chutti artist in the world. I never got to Australia, I never have, because for the rest of my life I was devoted to Kathakali and chutti. I was so lucky because my Ashan, the legend, Kalamandalam Govinda warrior, taught me everything that I know. When I first saw chutti, I couldn't believe it. It was magical. I knew then, as a young person, I was involved in something so special. I knew I must study chutti correct and well, but I had no idea why. So for the next 2 years, I practiced in the evening, at the weekends, and through the vacation to perfect my chutti. Throughout that time, my wonderful Ashan taught me everything through sound, because he couldn't speak English. And ആ സമയം ഞാൻ മലയാളം സംസാരിക്കുമില്ല, ഇപ്പോൾ സംസാരിക്കുമില്ല, ആ സമയം വളരെ മോശം. He taught me through sound, and when I cut the papers, he would go ah. That's Pacha chutti. But ah is Catalan chutti. So the sounds were different. He couldn't tell me, ഇവിടെ കുറച്ച് അധികം വേണം. He couldn't say that because I wouldn't understand. And explained, showing pictures of Kerala and Kathakali. So in a way, the people of England understood about Kathakali way before I returned to Kerala and met my wonderful husband, Kathakali actor Kalamandalam Vijaykumar. We got married and decided to bring Kathakali to the UK to share the magic not only of Kathakali but the culture and traditions of Kerala to the people all over the UK, not just London, but tiny villages in the north of Scotland, big cities, London, Manchester, Birmingham, Southampton, where we live, and take Kathakali to the children. We have now, since 1987, presented more than 3,500 workshops, 3,000 solo performances, and 1,750 full company Kathakali shows to over 250,000 people. In England, and they don't just enjoy Kathakali, they love it. Last year we did an amazing tour of almost 50 programs, and at the end the children were jumping up and down, cheering and shouting, standing ovations, and that joy that Kathakali brings to the people of Britain is incredible. And to think about our great Ashans, our gurus who gave us our life. So when we return, it's a moment where we reflect on what we're doing to make sure we're doing it with the right spirit, the right thought, and also to never ever forget the origin, the roots of Kathakali are in the incredible place of Kerala. ഞാൻ നല്ല ഭാഗ്യം കാരണം ഇവിടെ വളരെ സപ്പോർട്ട് കിട്ടി എല്ലാവരും അച്ഛന്മാരെ വളരെ സഹായം Padmashri Kalamandalam Gopi. I have done Ashan's Chutti more than 100 times, and it's his grace, his kindness that have given me that privilege, and that is something I will never forget. Also, Kalamandalam Nelliyod Ashan, he's always happy. Ende chutti kittum sandoshai. That's also a great honour. The top leading Redbeard specialist allows me to do his chutti. Kortikal Chandrasekharan, a great artist also, allowed me to do his chutti. Sadanam Krishnakuti, also MPS Ashan from Kalamandalam. So many people have given me the privilege of doing chutti on their face. ഞാൻ ചുറ്റി ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയം ചുറ്റി മാത്രം ആലോചിക്കുക. ഫസ്റ്റ് എൻ്റെ ആശാൻ ആലോചിക്കുക, ചോദിക്കാം ആശാൻ സഹായമോ, and always Ashan helps. One time in England, I fell off a stage by accident and severely injured. ഞാൻ ചുറ്റി ആർട്ടിസ്റ്റ് മാത്രം അവിടെ എന്ത് ചെയ്യും? പിന്നെ ഞാൻ ഇരിക്കുന്നു, ഞാൻ ചോദിച്ചു ആശാൻ സഹായമോ. Ashan said to me, I have been with you all your life. Of course I will help you now. And in great pain, I carried on doing all the chuttis for the rest of that tour. Also, I have a very strong devotion to Sri Vallappan, Tiruvalla Ambalam. One time we were visiting the temple, and I looked at Sri Vallappan as I entered. And he looked at me and he said, take care of Kathakali for me. I said, how? On my own, how can I do it? He said, trust in me and I will help you. Since then, we got so much help and support. Then in the inner sanctum of the Ambalam, I asked Sri Vallappan how to bring this to England, how to bring this spirituality to England. He said in English, wherever a light is lit with devotion, I will be there. So I made a temple out of fabric. At that time, I hadn't been inside. I had no idea the temple was round, but the temple I made was round. Also, I put a frill round the edge, but it was a little bit low. I thought, I've made a mistake. But when I went back to the temple and went inside to see Sri Vallappan, you have to bend down. And I thought, that is wonderful. Sri Vallappan was guiding me to make that temple. And we toured all around Britain with this temple. It took 8 hours to set up every day, but that made it so special. I trained in Kalamandalam 1974 to 1976. At that time, there were no women, certainly no women chutti artists, because I was the first female chutti artist in the world. Also, it was very strange for the Kalamandalam troupe to have a female person travel with them. At the time, we would go from temple to temple, and the bus would stop and all the men would get out and have a bath in the river. I couldn't do that. So I always had to find some way of living as a woman travelling with the Kalamandalam troupe. And I learned so many things about Kerala culture, the respect that was given to women. And at that time, it was hard because nobody spoke to me for a year. I was sat on a box in the corner with nobody to speak to. So after a year, I decided I want to go home. I want to go back to England. And I told my classmates why I was going, because I was lonely. And they said, "Oh, we were treating you with respect." And after that, it was fine. We became friends and I became simply a student. And that time was so special because we lived more as a family. Kalamandalam at that time was like a big family where the Ashans were devoted to their students and loved their students and cared for their students. And it's sad because them days are finished. When Padmanabhan Ashan, Ramakuti Ashan, all the great Ashans were with us, that time will never be repeated because it was so, so special. The greatest dedication to my Ashan was in 2008. I was on my way to the Velaneri Taddy Festival, Redbeard Festival. I love the Redbeard Chutti. Chovatadi Chutti Ishtamai. When I arrived, they asked me, "We've got a problem," because the other Chutti artists didn't arrive, Vanatilya. "Can you do the Chuttis?" I told them, "Enda Ashan Chodikyam, Sahayamo." So I asked my Ashan Sahayamo. I sat down and did 9 hours chutti without a break. Full night performance, single-handed in 2008. Undangle nyan cheduilla, our festival cancelled. They would have had to tell the audience, "Sorry, no festival." All the artists would have had to go back home. But because of the great Govindawari Ashan, his blessings, I was able to do that incredible test of a Chutti artist, which I'm very, very grateful for. Another great honour was probably the saddest time of my life. When my Asham was dying, we would visit his house every day. Ellam divasan Ashanda veetil poi nokkanam, Ashan ende vedam. When we arrived in December, he was lying down, very sick. But he said, when we arrived, "Ippal sandosham, ippal sandosham." And I held his hand for hours and hours. He sadly became worse. And one night when we arrived, his breathing was really bad. He was struggling to breathe. So we got the doctor who gave him an injection and told us to go to the hospital, Vullanad Hospital. He couldn't fit in the car. So his feet had to go outside the window. And I took off my shawl and put it under his feet so that he'd be comfortable. We got to the hospital, and the first night we thought, oh great, he's okay now. Then we came back and was on our way to see him again the next day. But the doctors told us he's not responding. Would you like to give last rites? So 2 of our son's children and Vijaya and myself were there at that time. And we were taken into the room where he was struggling to breathe. And I held his feet. And I said, Ashan, I will always stay at your feet. And every chutti I do in Ashan's name, because he gave me my life as a chutti artist. That's why he is so special to me. In 1976, on the 5th of June, I was due to travel back overland again to England. And the day before, I wanted to test myself. I wanted to see if I could do all the chuttis. So in Kalamandalam, on that night, I did 3 shows: Kalyana Saudigam, Kichikavadam, and Dakshiyaga. Again, single-handed, doing the most difficult chutti of all, Hanuman and Katti and Chovatadi. So I knew then that I'd learnt all the chuttis in the Kathakali field, and that I could go back to England with the skill that I'd been given by my Ashan. So again, I did a full night performance single-handed, which is the test of a chutti artist, and also the credit to the teacher, to the Ashan, that trained a student to such a standard to be able to do that.